Welcome back. After you've gotten over the shock of the apparent Oscar potential of Flamin' Hot, yet the zero Oscar potential of the new Mission Impossible film, which is currently sitting at a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, but is not on the Best Picture list. However, the Cheetos movie is. After we got over that, we've moved on to Best Director. This is Talking Oscars. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com. I am a blind film critic, so diversify your portfolio and click that subscribe button. And let's talk about some directors. So, who's gonna get the nomination? Well, I can tell you who Gold Derby and the good folk at Gold Derby think are going to get the nomination. The people who are currently, I think they take. This is it's not so much the editors. I'm sure the editors have different thoughts, but it's all the people who are making the projections, which are listening to. I would say listening to people like me, but probably people like me that have more YouTube subscribers. Maybe one day they'll listen to me. I don't know. And in their infinite wisdom, they're going with, so far, Martin Scorsese, Christopher Nolan, Celine Song, Denis Villeneuve, and Jonathan Glazer. So those are the five they're projecting. Let's get into that. Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon. I can't. I don't know how this doesn't happen. I mean, even if he only gets nominated, I don't know how it doesn't happen. I look at this at least how last year we were all about Spielberg for The Fabelmans. When you get to a certain point and you're one of those directors and you're up there in age and you're hitting a home run, a lot of people didn't even consider The Fabelmans to be a home run for Spielberg. There were a couple, naysayers out there that didn't think it was his best work, and that happens when you have the body of work that they have. But there's been a little bit more talk about how this might be worthy for Scorsese. So, from those who have seen it, benefits the fact that people have seen it. Now we have word of mouth. Now Killers of the Flower Moon is a frontrunner. It has to stay a frontrunner until the end of January. So, good luck with that. Have fun. So yeah, I have that. I agree with that. Sometimes it's fun to pick up 1 in 100, so I don't have the top 5, I will tell you that. Celine Song for Past Lives. I have her right now. The big stick in the mud for me here is, if it's true and Greta Gerwig really did revolutionize Barbie, I think she'll be rewarded for it, because that's hard. Doing Past Lives as a feature debut is impressive, but it doesn't necessarily equate to an Oscar nomination. And I don't necessarily, we still live in this period where I feel like we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is female directors. I'm not 100% sure we live in a world where 2 of them can populate the category simultaneously. It would be nice, but until that becomes a regular thing, where more and more female directors break in, I kind of look at it as who gets the female director spot, just as I would who gets the international spot, because I think that it's rare for us to have 2 people directing films not in the English language. I believe it's happened, but it is rare. So it's safe to go with 1. And right now, for the female nominee, I'm looking at Celine Song for Past Lives, because her film's out. Barbie opens in a couple weeks, and I'm saying the same thing that I said in my other video about Barbie and Greta Gerwig. If the film was so fucking great, everybody would have seen it by now. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think there's a huge, massive twist that they're trying to save everybody from being spoiled. They've screened so many films early. Mission Impossible was screened early. The Flash was screened ridiculously early. I knew people who saw that a month before the film opened. A month. Like, not even critics. I had friends that saw that in like mid-May. So, no. Like, I mean, they were doing open screenings for the public. That's why all the spoilers were out there. They didn't care. They wanted people to know we got a fun film. It didn't really work for them. I think they had too many screenings, but I think they gave away too many free tickets. But I knew so many people who saw The Flash before it opened. Um, they took, I mean, they're putting Indiana Jones up. It didn't even get good reviews. It hurt Elemental. I mean, they're pre-screening all these films and they're not even sure they're good. But yet Barbie and Oppenheimer, like dead silence from critics. What is going on? Like, I should be seeing reviews now from people who are like, oh my God. Oh my God, Barbie changed my life. Oh my God, my life is different now. I must leave. I have to go live in the mountains, among the mountain people, because I've seen Barbie. I am now spiritually awakened. It is the best film of all time. Thank you. I'm deleting my YouTube channel now because I'm going to go live with the mountain people because Barbie is just that good. I can't ever review anything ever again. Thank you. Thank you so much, Greta. Thank you. Like, nobody's doing that. I've seen past lives reviews that are really close to that. That are like, I saw one dude who was like, this is my favorite film of the year and I'm not changing it. And I'm like, you haven't even seen the other half of the films this year. Like, stop being ridiculous. So yeah, I guess I talked about past lives and Barbie simultaneously. So next up on the list, let's jump into who I don't have him in my top five. We'll jump into Chris Nolan. It's the same thing. It's what the fuck are they screening Oppenheimer? It's a little close. We've pre-screened everything else at this point. And by the way, this is a very competitive weekend. So if you have the good film, you want everybody to know. By the way, because your Barbie is currently projected to do like 80 to 100 million, which is not what Oppenheimer is projected to do. However, if the word on the street on Oppenheimer was that this was Chris Nolan's best film ever, then put it out there so that people can start fucking talking about it. This is not hard. Like, I should see Oppenheimer reviews all over the place. Why am I not seeing these reviews? And why is no one concerned? Like, I watch some of the other main people who do projections, and they talk about this stuff, right? And they talk about it, and they're like, oh yeah, well, we got the word of mouth, and, we're hearing things from screenings. Nobody's ever heard anything from Oppenheimer. Like, nobody's heard anything from Oppenheimer. Supposedly there's been, like, a couple of Barbie screenings, like, for people who are like in the know but not really like critic screenings. So like I've heard that reference. They're like, from the people who've seen Barbie, they say it's really different. Cool, that doesn't help me. I mean, lots of things are really different. But yeah, it's very weird that these films haven't been screened. So I'm very tepid on both of them. And I'm worried that their studios are tepid on them too. So, and then we've got Denis Villeneuve for a Dune Part 2. I love saying his name. I love saying Denis Villeneuve. I hate when people don't pronounce his name right. It's you don't have to pronounce it with nearly that much emphasis, by the way. But, I listened to another film critic say Denise the whole time, and I was like, his name is not Denise. It is not Denise. Please stop saying Denise. Please. Please stop saying Denise. Please stop saying Denise. Yeah, I love him. He's one of my favorite directors, and that's the problem is I think a lot of people are blinded by the fanboy part of it. I don't think he's a lock. There's been this weird disconnect with Oscars and Denis before, and I mean, just look at Arrival. Look at what Arrival came to Oscar season and was projected to do just fine, and did not. did not. Just did. It had great reviews, and I don't know what happened to the nomination for Amy Adams. It's just like so many things. It just It's gone. Um, and I think if he gets in, it's because Dune's really strong and his competition is a little weaker, and he's able to beat them. But I don't consider him a lock here. Um, I consider him sort of like James Cameron for Avatar 2. Will he get in? Will he not get in? I don't know. We'll have to see the other films in this category. And finally, the last person out of the top five that we have is Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest. Uh, I I agree with this one. The reason why I agree with this one is because this film is so beloved by critics right now. It has such a high Metacritic score, and from everything that I've heard about Zone of Interest, everything, all the people who've seen that keep describing it, it sounds really sort of experimental. And I've seen Jonathan Glazer's work before. Not I haven't seen Zone of Interest, and I can't see now. So his work is definitely visual. I think I think if I was blind trying to watch Under the Skin, I don't know that it would necessarily come across to me the same way as it did when I saw it, because I didn't even really love Under the Skin, but I could appreciate sort of what he was doing cinematically with the way he shot the film, if that makes any sense. Like as a narrative feature, I didn't love it, but I thought what he was doing with it was interesting. And so Zone of Interest is a little bit more of that. If it's a little bit more of a directorial achievement, then I think this is where it gets recognized, and not so much maybe in other categories. Especially something like screenplay, when I've heard this film has almost no dialogue, or very little dialogue. So I think I think this is the projection, which is usually supposed to surprise people, but I think we're all projecting the same surprise, which is really interesting to me. Anyway, it's weird that Jonathan Glazer is a front runner for a directing nomination. Doesn't feel right to me, but I do actually think it's going to happen, so I can't argue with it. Then we've got, I need to learn how to pronounce his name correctly, so I will not be attempting to butcher his name, because I've heard it pronounced differently a couple times, but the director of The Color Purple actually comes in at 6. I think that's a little high. Again, we're talking, with him and Celine Song, we're talking about first-time directors. Now, Celine's film has been out, so we know what it's like. That's a really high projection for a feature-length debut for a guy that's been doing music videos. That's really optimistic. So, from the trailer, especially considering basically everybody's awards projections have been based on who the name of the director doing the film brings them in, rolls them in. They're like, oh, well, it's the new so-and-so film, so of course it's gonna pop, you know. Then where is your Yorgos Lanthimos? If you think everybody's gonna watch the Yorgos Lanthimos film, then why is he losing to this to the director of Color Purple? People don't make any sense, and that's what I'm here to do, is to make sense of them. Number 7 was Alexander Payne for The Holdovers. I think that's really interesting, because for all the people out there that are like, I don't know if people are going to nominate Alexander Payne. We're in a place now, I don't know if, it's this whole thing that came out of Me Too, where if you're even remotely have any sort of bad boy behavior, suddenly, like, there's a 10-foot pole, you know what I'm saying? Like, nobody, but then he's 7th. So it's like everybody sees the 10-foot pole and they're wondering how it'll affect The Holdovers, but why is he 7th? I don't know. It just goes to the strength of Alexander Payne. It's really, it's like people are saying, we really believe in The Holdovers, and we think the drama of Alexander Payne is minimal, and he has a shot. And I think that's interesting. So I think he's probably lower than seventh. At the end of the day, his film's going to be sort of like a family dramedy, and we have some people here who are going for achievements. I actually honestly think his strongest competition is going to be Greta Gerwig, because I don't know that Barbie and The Holdovers, both being probably of the ilk of comedy, will be able to get in at the same time. So, anyway, coming up next, I didn't memorize the rest of the list. I only memorized through the top 7, so we'll just talk about some of the other potentials. We've got, obviously, I said Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things. Again, it looks weird, but it also could be the kind of thing that gets a directorial achievement because it is a directorial achievement. Sometimes we see that. Sometimes we see if a director get a nomination, like I'm projecting Jonathan Glazer to get a director nomination where his film will not. So, I think that it's possible. It's a little bit more possible. I think right now he's at 100 to 1 odds. So if you want to feel bold, if you think Poor Things looks cool, I would say go for it. My 100 to 1 odds right now is Hayao Miyazaki. Probably will change that, but it's going to stay there at least until people have seen How Do You Live. It's the end of the career thing. I could see oftentimes we who do this talk about narratives, and the fact that Hayao had stopped directing, he retired and he came back. If this film is amazing, if this film is Spirited Away, I think he gets in. I think if Spirited Away was being released this year, he would get in. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he had managed the pinnacle of his career now, at this point in his life, building up to Spirited Away, he would get in. So this film, if it's good as that, there's a very good chance. I would say even if it's as good as, like, Howl's Moving Castle or Princess Mononoke, I'd say he gets in. But anyway... yeah, so I think there's actually a possibility that we get somebody in there for animated feature, and it's not the Spider-Man guy. The team of Spider-Man, I think there's too many directors on Spider-Man team. I think it's really confusing. More people I'd love for us to consider are the directors of Nyad. I seem to be the only person who's talking about Nyad. A lot of people just don't care about this film. I think it's really interesting that we have this Academy Award-winning duo from Free Solo coming in here. Their work was praised, how well they shot Free Solo, and now they're doing a film with actors, and they brought in a great crew from everything that I've heard. It doesn't really seem to be a reason why people don't think this works, other than the fact that they think it's maybe just too Oscar baity or too simple of a film. All of those are weird. They're weird reasons to not believe in the duo behind Free Solo. So I definitely have my eye on them. I suppose Taika Waititi, I don't think he gets in for Next Goal Wins, but if Next Goal Wins is like, I don't know, some massive achievement in film, or it makes like $200 million at the box office, I'm not going to write that off. I think that's weird. Some other names that are a little bit more familiar. You got Ridley Scott for Napoleon. As I said yesterday, Ridley Scott has not been on like a hot streak. So I'm going to go with no for right now until somebody tells me Napoleon matches Gladiator, in which case I'll be like, oh, maybe then. Maybe. I don't see there's a world in which Ridley Scott's Napoleon becomes a lock for me. I think he will always be in maybe 5th place. Do you know, like, even if this has a 100% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, I would still be like, I don't know. Maybe he gets in. I don't know. I feel like they're so tepid to him right now. Same thing with David Fincher for The Killer, which I mean he's missed out before, so It's not like these people are constantly on top of them. They're both auteurs. They're both great. Can their films get in? Can they get nominated? I don't know. I don't know why Chris Nolan always gets mentioned, but people like those two don't. I mean, I think Scott actually has a couple films that you can point to as the reason for, well, this is why. I think that David Fincher is a little less that way. I think Fincher has been a lot more consistent in his filmmaking, and it's weird that he doesn't immediately garner that same sort of frontrunner status for everything that he touches. I don't know. For some reason, we still think Asteroid City and Wes Anderson is going to happen. I think that film got released and we kind of figured out. Even the people who like it, I have yet to really hear people go, this is the best Wes Anderson movie. So this is a branch that has not rewarded Wes Anderson, and does not embrace him. His films frequently do not break into major categories. He only has had one Best Picture nominee out of his entire body of work. I know that seems shocking. I even double checked it because when I heard that, I was like, didn't Moonrise Kingdom get that? No, it didn't. Okay, all right. Well, Grand Budapest Hotel, that's it. That's what defines his career. So he's big with fans. Hollywood seems to, despite the fact that every actor in Hollywood wants to work with him, when it comes time to actually putting him on a ballot, they don't. So there's the director of Anatomy of a Fall. I think Glazer's standing in her way, to be honest, and also she's fighting the female race to get in. So, what do we get? 2 foreign also, but 2 female directors. That would, I mean, she would satisfy both if for some reason Celine and Jonathan made it plus her. Not only would we have a second international, but we'd have a second female director. So, I don't know, maybe. It did really well. It can, but it's got a long way to go. Neon, last year, but that doesn't mean they're going to do it every year. They did it last year for Triangle of Sadness. They got that film into Best Picture and Best Director. So I am interested. I'm intrigued to see what. I don't know why Ari Aster is so damn high on the 101 list. I don't know how the 101 list happens, but if you have Ari Aster in your list because you think he's going to get nominated for Beau is Afraid, please stop. And thank you. We're going to move on from that. Ben Affleck for Air. If you have Ben Affleck in your top 5, please stop. And thank you. We're going to move on from that. If you have Blackberry in your top 5, please stop. We're going to move on from that. None of those people are getting nominated. I'm sorry. They're not. It's not happening. This category is too thick. There are too many other directors who still have films coming out this year that could surprise, that could pop, that haven't even been screened yet. Like films like The Bike Riders. I guess if the Piano Lesson happens, the problem with the Piano Lesson is it just finished filming, just now. So the post-production on this is going to have to really cram. And by the way, if we do get a SAG strike and these actors can't promote these films, I think a lot of films that are not gaining buzz get bumped to 2024. I think we're going to start losing films from the schedule. A lot of these smaller films, the films that you look at that you go, I don't know what that is, or films that haven't built up the kind of running head start. Plus, it's a Netflix film. Netflix has so many films in this race. So, speaking of that, Bradley Cooper for Maestro. No. I don't think they reward him for having a film with reshoots. I don't. I don't think that's gonna happen. We got George C. Wolfe is behind Rustin. I've not heard good things about Rustin. Just like I haven't heard good things about John Ridley's Shirley. There are just a couple of films here that I, I don't know. I mean, they have good directors. I was really interested. There's a couple names. If you go through the director list, it's just fun. You'll see that Dev Patel is eligible this year. He directed something, and they think he might be nominated. Cool. Uh, and and just a couple of a couple of really interesting people. Um, Down there. Sam Taylor Johnson. It's been a long time since I've seen that name. It was, oh my God, Sam Taylor Johnson. She's, I think, last place on 101. I was just, poor girl. Anyway, so yes, this is basically, I feel like I've talked about the bulk of what may or may not happen. I still don't know. I mean, there are films that people almost refuse to talk about, and I don't know why. Like, try to get try to get one of the Oscar people to talk about The Boys in the Boat, George Clooney's film for Amazon. It's not happening. It's like they keep walking around it. I'm like, are we thinking this is greatest beer run ever? Is that what we're trying to do? Is just avoid it? We're just pretending it doesn't exist? Okay, cool. I guess then someone's sorry, George, and you made a movie, but nobody wants to talk about it. Um, and there's several films sort of like that just kind of float around in the space, and maybe they'll get nominated, but they probably won't. And nobody wants to give them the kind of push, because if we're being honest, that's what these films need. They need pushes. I don't think Spider-Verse happens here at all, ever. I think they don't have the name, and to get somebody an animated feature, I think you're going to have the name of Miyazaki. Miyazaki is probably the only animated director that can get in this category. Anyway, that's it. So, I will be back tomorrow with some more nominations. In case you're wondering, I do have, I didn't necessarily feel the need. I was looking at the 101s, and the only one that I really wanted to snap up just in case was Hayao Miyazaki. I didn't feel that strongly about any of the 101s where I was like, I think we're totally off guard here. I think this is definitely happening. Most of them, I was like, I need to see your film. I need to see your film. I need to see your film. People need to see your film. I need to hear about your film. I just didn't feel solid in anybody. So I decided to take a risk on Miyazaki for right now while I wait for Chris Nolan's film to screen. Why? What are you doing? Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll be back with more Oscar talk tomorrow. Until then, I'll see you guys on the other side.